Hey everybody, Tyler from Duelcastermage.com here. Today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 most powerful cards from Rivals of Ixalan for Duel Commander. These aren't necessarily my favorite cards, but I think the cards that will see the most play in the format have the biggest impact on the format. And one quick thing I wanted to mention before I start is the Duel Commander Discord channel. This is a really great place to bounce ideas with other members of the community, and we're going to be starting another league soon, which is a tournament where you kind of round robin tournament where you play a bunch of people. And we usually play through Mage or some other online platform, but you can play with your buddy in real life too if you want. But anyway, the link to join that Discord channel is in the video description. So click that little show more button under the video and it'll take you right there. You can get signed up. All right, let's get into the Rivals of Ixalan cards. Okay, we're going to start out at number 10 here with Twilight Profit. Wow, this card is pushed. How good it is really depends on how easy it will be to get the city's blessing in Duel Commander. If Edgar Markov were still legal, it would be trivial, but thank God we don't live in that world. It's probably harder to get the city's blessing in Duel Commander compared to Limited, due to how much interaction and mass removal exists in the format. Still, I think this card is very playable since its base stats are okay, and it can block well and buy you some time before you get to 10 permanents. You also don't necessarily need to raw dog it out on turn 4, but can wait until later when you can get a send going immediately and then have protection up for the profit. It's good against Leovold because the ability doesn't count as drawing a card. It also blocks Leovold effectively and presents an alternate clock with the upkeep trigger. It's probably at its best in Karlov of the Ghost Console, because that deck runs a lot of cheap permanents, which help get the city's blessing faster, and the life gain can boost Karlov. It's also playable in any deck with Tymna, the Weaver, since the evasion is useful, and it doesn't compete at the same mana cost, plus the life gain can help counteract the small life loss from Tymna. Alright, coming in at number 9, we have Thrashing Brontodon. This is a creature closest in design to Kasali Pride Mage, but now non-green-white decks have access to a creature like this. In mono green, it's most comparable to Reclamation Sage in that it's a 3-drop creature that can destroy an artifact or enchantment. Unlike the Sage, though, it has a relevant body that can beat down even before a target shows up. It's also a better blocker against a lot of the top commanders such as Zergo, Leovold, Saskia, and Titania. If all you want to do is blow up a target, it costs 4 total mana, which is worse than Reclamation Sage, and pretty relevant when you're searching for it with Survival of the Fittest or Woodland Bellower or something like that. Overall, I think this will see play, but Rec Sage is still better. Since green decks typically play a lot of creature tutors, they can afford to play a single copy of a toolbox creature like this in the 99, and Rec Sage would win that slot in most cases, in my opinion. This is a great addition to Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, though. Number 8 in our list is Rekindling Phoenix. Wow, this is my vote for the most gorgeous artwork in the set. On the surface, this presents a serious clock while 2-for-1ing your opponent if they're forced to kill it. Its death trigger is even better than indestructible in the sense that if it dies via Diabolic Edict effects or -1/-1 counters, it still provides value. It's a bit vulnerable to graveyard hate, but even then you get a 4/3 flyer for 4 mana, which is a totally fine rate. The biggest strike against it is that it doesn't have a super obvious home among the top Duel Commander decks right now. It's a little too expensive for Zergo and too mid-rangey for Kess and Queen Marchesa. I'm excited to try it out in Feldon, as that deck is all about value creatures, and using Feldon's ability on it from your graveyard still allows you to bring the original copy back when it dies, which is kind of cool. It's also worth considering in Ludovic/Crown tempo decks. All right, coming in at number 7, Journey to Eternity. This is one of the multicolored legendary enchantments that are enemy colors. They flip into a land, and if it weren't for its color combination, this would be even higher on the list due to its power level. But the fact that it's green-black and requires you to be playing cheap creatures limits its applicability somewhat. You really want to be able to sacrifice your own creatures with this, otherwise your opponent can just ignore it. Imagine playing Sakura Tribe Elder on turn 2, then you play this on turn 3, sacrifice the Elder to get a land, then Journey comes back flipped as well as your Sakura Tribe Elder. You can sack the Elder again at that point and effectively have a triple ramping growth on turn 3. You'd have 6 lands in play, ready to reanimate the Sakura Tribe Elder with Atzal and Shump Block the next turn, or even play something better. And It's at its best in Marin of Clan Neltoth, but playable also in Leovold, Gitrog, and Prosh. It's at its worst against blue-red Drago type decks such as Keranos, since they can either counter the journey, burn your target in response to you playing this, or bounce your creature and have the journey fall off. So keep your local metagame in mind when you decide whether or not to play this card. All right, coming in at number 6, we have Arch of Arazka, colorless land. This is my actual favorite card in the set, degenerate that I am. I love monocolor decks and ways to draw cards outside of blue and black, so this ticks all the boxes for me. It's going straight into my Akroma, Angel of Fury, and Bruna, the Fading Light decks. This card's basically a Whispers of the Muse for all you old school dogs out there, but it's even better because it's uncounterable and doesn't take up a slot in your deck. The downside is that you need the City's Blessing before you can start drawing cards, but the advantages are totally worth it in my opinion, especially in a monocolor deck. It's important to have gas in the late game in an attrition war, even if that situation only comes up, say, 1 in every 5 games. It's going to raise your overall win percentage by a non-zero amount at minimal deck building costs as long as you are 1, maybe 2 colors. Mono green's also the color where it'll be easiest to get the City's Blessing, but green has also more ways to draw cards than red or white. This has some similarities to Throne of the High City, which is a card that is seriously underrated in my opinion. Number 5, Ravenous Chupacabra. There's not a whole lot to say about this card. It's just a super straightforward value creature. Obviously, it will be good in any mid-range black deck and could easily replace cards like Skinrender or Necrotol if anyone still plays those cards. It has some extra utility if you can blink it, though that would require another color besides black, probably. It's worth considering in any of the partner aggro decks that include black, such as Tymna, pretty much anything with Tymna, basically, and then Braids and Grenzo Dungeon Warden. It's very rare that this card will be actively bad unless you're facing something like Keranos. All right, number 4 is Admirals Order. This card is very unique in that it punishes your opponent for waiting to use a kill spell until your combat step, since you've already enabled raid at that point, or declare blockers or whatever. This interaction may come up more often in Limited than in Duel Commander, but it's still possible. More likely is that you use this to counter a spell they try to cast at the end of your turn, or use this to counter a counter spell after you try to play something in your second main phase. So it's more like a flexible Dispel in those situations. Still, Dispel is a card that was already on the cusp of playability in Duel Commander, and a Dispel that can also be a cancel pushes this card over the top. I think it should and will see a lot of play. I would play this in any aggressive blue tempo deck, especially one in which I'd want to protect some critical Haymaker spells. I'm going to slide it right into my Kira Great Glass Spinner aggro control deck in my Taigam Ojutai Master deck. Dire Fleet Daredevils are number 3. This slow caster mage will never be as good as old Snappy Senior, but we shouldn't feel too bad because blue is entitled to the best versions of things anyway, right? Ay. At least we get First Strike in exchange for Flash, which is a serviceable ability on a 2/1 creature. This one's less embarrassing to run out in turn 2 without making use of the triggered ability. You might even know that you're playing against a deck with few instants and sorceries, so you can play it on curve without being overly upset about it. This is just a solid value creature. Chances are you'll be able to get an instant or sorcery from your opponent's graveyard by turn 5 at least. A common sequence will be your opponent casting Thoughtseize or Inquisition of Kozilek turn 1, and having to decide if they want to take this card or some other juicier target, knowing you'll be able to hit them back with their own discard spell soon. I'm excited to play it in Feldon so I can potentially use my opponent's counter spells against them, but it will also be good in Grenzo Dungeon Warden for that same reason. For number 2, we have Blood Sun. The cycle I never knew remained to be completed. This is a weird one with a lot of complicated rules implications. For example, if you have this in play and play an Izzet Boilerworks, not only will it enter the battlefield untapped, but you won't even have to bounce another land. It'll just tap for 2 mana right away. So in this way, it improves certain cards of yours that might have been utterly hosed by Blood Moon, which is super interesting. You could even run it in a 5-color deck, since you very rarely can afford to devote slots to utility lands, but have all sorts of dual lands with this with various drawbacks. My Okagachi Enchantress deck will love Blood Sun for this reason, as well as the fact that it's a relevant enchantment that doesn't put you down a card. The most common thing this will affect is fetch lands, since searching is not a mana ability. If you can just stop one of your opponent's fetch lands with this, it becomes worth it. This card is also extremely good against Titania and the Gitrog monster, since they are so dependent on fetch lands and other lands with non-mana abilities. And finally, the top card from Rivals of Ixalan for Duel Commander, in my opinion, is the Immortal Son. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate treasure at the heart of Ixalan. This one's a doozy. I haven't seen such keyword soup on an artifact since Akroma's Memorial. This card is excellent, even though it will be rare to make use of all the abilities in a meaningful way. It doesn't really matter too much when you're drawing twice as many cards per turn and all of your spells are discounted. This is going to be especially good in green decks that can ramp it out, make good use of the creature pumping effect, and have Haymaker spells above 7 mana that get further accelerated by the cost reduction effect. So decks like Nissa, Vastwood Seer, except maybe not exactly since it hoses our Planeswalker side, but Captain Sisse perhaps? This Immortal Son is legendary, so it can be fetched by your commander. The Planeswalker part could be a double-edged sword now that Sisse herself can fetch Planeswalkers, but it gives you an answer to the opposing Planeswalkers, especially Commander Planeswalkers like Teferi. I would also run this in any control deck with ramp, such as Maelstrom Wanderer, where it is extra good since it lets you cast your commander ahead of schedule. Well, those are my top 10 picks for Rivals of Ixalan cards I will see play in Duel Commander. I don't think any of the new legendary creatures will make a huge impact as commanders, but I'm going to be trying out a few like Kumena and Itali anyway, since I think they'll be a lot of fun to play. So stay tuned for videos of those in the coming weeks. Let us know in the comments below which cards from Rivals you're most excited about. How has your existing deck gotten an upgrade with the new set? Are you brewing up a whole new deck based around one of the new legendaries? I love to hear from you guys, and it keeps me motivated for making these videos. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to Duelcaster Mage if you like what you see. Thanks for watching.